Colorado turns to antibody treatment to keep COVID patients from getting sick enough to clog up hospitals. But the state can't just give it to everyone. We asked the governor if he wishes he'd done anything differently to prevent our current COVID surge. Farm workers getting overtime at long last, and this was a battle right up to this week's final decision. A Coloradan whose job is coffee and making sure the world will have enough of it. And our Friday tradition.
I believe in good news. I think we need more good news.
Couldn't have said it better myself. The news of your life makes headlines here, because this is next. Colorado's latest idea to keep our hospitals from overflowing with COVID patients is not a mask mandate. It's not restrictions on indoor events. No, the state wants to put monoclonal antibodies in the bodies that have just contracted COVID. Marshall Zellinger explains why antibody treatment, unlike vaccine boosters, aren't available to everyone.
Do you live in Colorado? Yes. Are you older than 18? Yes. Are you breathing? Yeah. Then based on the recent executive order from Democratic Governor Jared Polis, you are high risk for exposure to COVID and eligible for a COVID booster. But high risk for exposure to COVID is not the same as high risk for getting really sick from COVID.
Yes, there is a difference. Let me explain.
Denver Health's Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Connie Savor-Price, will walk us through the more complicated flowchart after explaining what the heck is monoclonal antibody treatment.
The monoclonal antibody prevents those already infected from getting severe disease.
It's administered as an injection or an IV, but just because you live in Colorado, are older than 18, and are breathing, that does not make you eligible for this treatment.
Not everybody is at risk for severe disease.
Are you positive for COVID? Yes. Are you showing symptoms? If no, you're not high risk. No monoclonal for you. If yes, you're not there yet. Are you high risk at getting very sick from COVID, meaning older than 65, or overweight, or pregnant, or have heart disease, cancer, or a weakened immune system? No, no monoclonal. Yes, still not there yet. Did your symptoms start fewer than 10 days ago? If yes, you qualify. Back to the top now. What if you're not positive for COVID? Then you need to have one of those high-risk conditions I just listed. State epidemiologist Dr. Rachel Herlihy believes monoclonal antibodies will keep hospitals in Colorado from reaching capacity. Try to follow her graph. The blue section shows peak hospitalizations around the new year, more than 2,000 patients, if monoclonal antibody treatments continue at the same level as it's happening today. The green section shows a lower peak in hospitalizations if monoclonal antibody treatment increases by 50%.
If we're able to substantially increase monoclonal therapy use in Colorado, we estimate that we could decrease peak hospitalizations here in Colorado by 150 to 300 at the peak.
There are now 161 providers for this treatment if you qualify based on the flowcharts. We have a link to the map of all the locations on 9news.com. And Kyle, you didn't see it on the flowchart, but if you have a close exposure to COVID, you still have to go to the are you high risk. So you go to the same section as if you don't have COVID. It still relies on are you high risk or not before you can go and get it.
So as we know, these rules are made to be broken because the governor decided that the entire state is now a high-risk living situation, and that's how everybody's able to get vaccine boosters. Could the governor theoretically decide that everybody suddenly has a high-risk condition and next thing you know they're spraying antibodies from crop dusters? Or what?
I really think it's the providers are just relying on the state's guidance. And if the state health department decides everyone is high risk for this category, just like he's saying everyone is high risk for boosters, I think you could go and then the provider would be like, sure, the higher up said it's okay, so we'll do it for you.
Could you imagine if he came out and he goes, yeah, everybody in this state, low oxygen, you qualify for antibodies. Also, did that flow chart contain a Bitmoji of Governor Polis?
If you don't ask, you never know what you're going to get. And I asked his people, hey, you don't happen to have a cartoon version of the governor I could use to go with my cartoon version of me. What's it for? Told them what it's for.
Boom.
You saw it.
Do you think they made it or do you think they already had it?
They had it.
Yeah, I thought they did too. All right. Thank you, Marshall. Colorado's hospitalizations for COVID are still increasing daily, though not as quickly as they were at the beginning of the week. There are 1,476 confirmed COVID patients in our hospitals. That is 10 more patients than yesterday, 180 more than this time last week. Our positivity rate is hanging right below 10%. 10% not good. 9.97% is the weekly average. A test coming back hot for COVID. Have not seen numbers that high since before vaccines were widely available. So with Colorado on track for its highest hospitalizations anytime during the pandemic, we asked Democratic Governor Jared Polis of Bitmoji fame if there is anything that he wishes the state had done differently over the last couple months.
Anything that we could have done to get that vaccination rate higher than it is would have made a difference. We did well. We always wish that we did better. We had 5% more vaccinated, 8% more vaccinated. I think we're grateful that our peak was now instead of 2 or 3 months ago, because we do have a higher vaccination rate than we did then. We don't expect that this peak will be as severe in terms of ratio of hospitalizations to population as it was in states that peaked when they had a 40 or 50% vaccination rate. I can only imagine what those states were going through because we're having a tough time at 70 to 80% vaccination.
And in fact, the number of fully vaccinated Coloradans has crept up just a bit. Almost 3.6 million Coloradans are fully vaccinated. Remember, we've pointed out before the partially vaccinated slice of the pie, 342,000 Coloradans, or 5.8%. They're waiting on a second dose. That includes an awful lot of people who got their first dose long ago and just decided not to come back for another. Parents of young kids are going to start getting texts and emails from the state health department today, reminding them that kids 5 to 11 are vaccine eligible. Just so that folks know that this is not spam, they're going to text you links. It's going to come from the number 45778 or an email from Colorado PHE or Colorado DPHE at teletask.com. Last word on vaccinations tonight. I want you to meet Michael Rivera, 6 years old. Got his first shot on Wednesday. Thank the pharmacist at the Walmart in Broomfield for making it so easy. We first met Michael's family last year because of his grandfather, Papa Dan Vigil. He was the first person in Boulder County to have known to die from COVID. We're told that Michael and Papa Dan were best friends. Colorado's farm workers keep us fed through their hard work over long hours, time that has not qualified for overtime until this year. It's a really difficult and contentious issue before the state legislature, with farm worker advocates arguing for more pay and benefits and farmers saying they could not afford it. Our Victoria De Leon looks at the new rules finalized just this week.
Overtime pay for Colorado farm workers is now written into law.
Agriculture has had overtime in only 6 other states.
The state finalized those overtime requirements this week. Ere Juarez was disappointed with the final rules.
Muy triste. Mi corazón se siente muy mal.
Juarez works with Project Protect, an organization advocating for farm workers' rights. They wanted workers to receive overtime pay after 40 hours a week.
Por supuesto, cuando tú trabajas tus 40 horas y ganas más dinero de lo que ya trabajaste, tienes acceso a salud.
Instead, they'll get time and a half pay beginning in November of 2022 after working 60 hours a week. In 2024, it's reduced to 56 hours for some seasonal workers and small employers, and 54 hours for others. By 2025, most farm workers will be eligible for overtime after 48 hours.
This soft entry is very important because it's going to give both workers and employers a chance to readjust.
The 40-hour cap Juarez was hoping for, employers like Bruce Talbot feared.
We are not in a financial position to pay significant overtime, as most growers are not.
Talbot says it's an industry where hours fluctuate seasonally. Some months it's 40 hours a week, others it's 50.
July 15th through middle of August or end of August, they're averaging 70 hours a week.
Overtime has never been meant to be just money in pockets. It's meant to be an encouragement of shorter hours and to spread jobs among more workers.
But some employers say limiting hours could lead to less producing.
Pienso que es un argumento que no
Juarez believes the well-being of workers
la necesidad del trabajador agrícola
should be the priority. So when this part of Senate Bill 87 was sent to rulemaking, CDLE was asked to consider past historical inequities that often face people of color in the ag industry, specifically those that have to do with unequal pay and worker exploitation. The state feels the new rules did that, but community groups advocating for those farm workers disagree. Meanwhile, Kyle, again, those employers claim the money just isn't there.
Victoria, I think one thing that I've really appreciated about your reporting on this issue is that you've dove into the complexity of this and the nuances and differences of opinions from folks who aren't necessarily arch enemies or always going at it with each other. They understand where other folks are coming from, and they might not fall exactly where you think they would on this issue.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you saw kind of the divisiveness of the portion of that bill with those two people in that story. But when it comes to the actual farm workers, there are a lot of H-2A workers in Colorado. Those are the people who come from different countries to work here, make as much money as they can. Those are the workers who are worried those hours are going to get cut if the employers need to start paying more after a certain amount of hours. Now, the needs are probably different for farm workers who live and who live and are part of this Colorado community. So it's just something that, will take time to adjust to for everyone involved.
Well, have a better understanding about it every time you dive in and let us hear from folks impacted. Victoria, thank you. So just a heads up, airport is going to close the East Economy lot for the holiday season in order to open up the much larger Pikes Peak and Mount Elbert parking lots. But it means that travelers need to build in another 45 minutes in order to wait for the shuttle from the outer lots to the terminal. This setup here is a little bit confusing, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to wave my arms around as I explain it to make it more clear. So the airport is consolidating all available shuttle drivers to service the two biggest lots. So they're closing down an off-site employee parking lot, telling employees to park in the east lot instead and walk into the terminal. And they're moving all those drivers to the Pikes Peak and Mount Elbert lots. East Economy lot closes Monday. Outer lots open next Friday. I would never have fathomed saying this 5 years ago, but you should really just take the A-line train to the airport. You want people to focus, care about climate change? Tell them it'll impact their morning cup of coffee. A researcher from Colorado has that warning and a potential solution.
My good news is that my wife and I are expecting our first baby. So that's the good news out of COVID.
We get it. The headlines on the news are not always the headlines of your life. That's why your good news makes the news each Friday on Next. I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way in naming Colorado's plow fleet, was the suggestion from Whitney Houston. 20 new plows in Colorado's CDOT fleet have now been renamed by the youths. Few of our favorites: Notorious B.I.G., No Way Snow Day, Darth Blader, Eisenplower, and Mr. Plow. That name again, it's Mr. Plow. The 20 names were chosen from more than 1,100 submissions. Each winner gets a commemorative plaque, and they get to take a photo with a snowplow, which is truly every child's dream come true.
All right, here we are, the middle of November, and still we have not seen any measurable snowfall in Denver. We could be potentially breaking some records. The latest snowfall that we have ever seen, November 21st, all the way back in 1934. We are just 9 days away from that. And right now, I don't have much in that extended forecast. Certainly no snow tonight as we're looking at the clouds drifting in. Stronger storm system across the Pacific Northwest that will just barely graze Colorado late tomorrow night. This evening, still mild. Overnight lows falling into the 30s. There's that storm. That cold front will clip eastern Colorado, allowing for temperatures to cool off ever so slightly on Sunday, but still pretty warm around here. We'll kick off tomorrow with a few clouds, and then we'll be back to the mid-60s, mid to upper 60s for much of the metro area, 40s and 50s to the high country, 70s early next week, and possibly a rain-snow mix early on Wednesday.
Thanksgiving season's all about family traditions. Our next family tradition is to share your good news on Fridays. And this week, we had the honor to sit down at the table with LGBTQ elders from the Center on Colfax's SAGE program. They invited us to their table. We brought our favorite question. What's your good news?
Hello, everybody! Hello! All right, quiet on the set.
We have a great crowd today that's really enjoying being together.
Oh, I definitely believe in good news.
My good news is this week really turned around, and I was really happy that at the last minute I was able to get this assignment. And I mean, that just made my day because I love doing photography events like this where people are coming together and it's for an awesome cause. Thank you.
My good news is that it's almost my birthday coming up in December, and followed by Christmas.
We're all really happy to be here, and because we're all gay, it's like we belong with each other, and so we're so happy to see each other and just be recognized and be happy.
My good news is that my wife and I are expecting our first baby, so that's the good news out of COVID.
This is an opportunity for these older adults to get together, make friends, have some fun together.
My good news is that a month ago my car kind of gave up on life. It was very sad I loved that car, but I was able to find a new one.
My good news is love one another and be joyous.
I got a lot of good news. One of them is just graduated from college, and I got a full-time job at the center working as a development coordinator, and I just purchased a condo.
Thanks for being here today.
If anybody asks me what is my favorite plant, I would say coffee.
I would second that. A Coloradan who researches coffee for a living has some ideas on how we should protect the global supply in a changing climate. Next. I've never pondered the sustainability of my morning cup of coffee. Probably should. Natural disasters fueled by climate change are impacting some coffee-growing regions of the world. Dr. Sharada Krishnan is a coffee researcher based at the Denver Botanic Gardens. She's leading a team to try and make our morning routine more sustainable.
I'm a coffee lover and I'm a coffee farmer and a coffee researcher. I'm all in, coffee's in my genes. If anybody asks me what is my favorite plant, I'll say coffee. I'm Sharada Krishnan. I'm the Director of Horticulture and the Center for Global Initiatives at the Denver Botanic Gardens. And for us as Botanic Gardens, that's what we do. A lot of people think that the gardens is just here, but we are outside too. We make huge impacts outside of the gardens too.
Okay, hi.
Hi. So we are working in Puerto Rico with the coffee farmers in Puerto Rico. Demand for coffee has gone up, but production is going down because of a lot of climate change issues. So what happened is after Hurricane Maria, a lot of the farms, they lost their crop and they all had to replant. And a lot of the farms also lost their power source. Energy was a big challenge, and even now it is a challenge. And what we are looking at is coffee. In general, coffee growing is done in shady areas where they need shade trees are used for coffee cultivation. So we decided, coffee already needs shade. Can we use these solar panels as shades for coffee? If this application works very well, we can scale it to all the other coffee growing regions and make it most sustainable product.
Appreciate Dr. Krishnan sharing her work with us through the lens of photojournalist Foster Gaines. She tells us those solar panels, easy for me to say, should be installed any day now. If the park assist on your Italian sports car still cannot keep you from blocking 2 handicap spots, you've crossed the line. That and your feedback about a messed up camera around here next. If your 6-figure sports car is keeping not 1 but 2 drivers from being able to park in handicapped spots, well then you have definitely crossed the line. Chelsea spotted the Maserati parked in the access lane between 2 handicapped spaces in downtown Denver. Dude, and trust me, this is a dude who did this. Dude, those white stripes are not reserving the special spot just for your Maserati. You are blocking access for people who need those spots next door. Just a reminder, Colorado would have more parking if everybody takes just 1 spot. Feedback coming in via text tonight. Night after night, I see lint on your sport coats. Since it doesn't move with you, I went to clean my TV screen. It isn't me either. Please have your camera person clean the lens. Do this here. We'll do this now. Is that better? It's still there. Okay. That's better. See you next time.